Namaste. My name is Jay Bansal, and it is my distinct honor to be speaking with an eminent scholar of our times, Padam Bhushan Professor Kapil Kapoor ji. Professor Saab, Namaste.
Namaskar ji, namaskar.
Ji, without going into his very distinct career or his impressive list of accomplishments, I will go straight to the subject at hand, that is Hindudvesha. So, as you're well aware, Professor Saab, Hindu ecosystem is under 360-degree attack from a variety of forces. We have chosen to call this phenomenon Hindudvesha, that is, hatred, aversion, aggression against our traditions, our values, our social structures, in short, our very identity. With your extensive knowledge of this subject, could you kindly share your thoughts on this topic?
First of all, I think it's a very wise thing to change the word phobia into dwesh, because phobia implies some kind of a fear and an irrational fear of something. I don't think these people who are doing so much against the Hindu society are really afraid of the Hindu society. They are not afraid really. You can call it a hatred, or you can call it it is almost an irrational unhappiness with the way the entire Hindu civilization has evolved and has built up as an alternative to the contemporary Western Christendom, the Abrahamic system. So I'm very happy that we are talking more of Hindu dwesha. I'll start by saying that, first of all, since this subject has been discussed very often now, and it is quite rightly, it has been discussed widely, because, as you said, a number of forces, both inside India and outside, are devoting themselves almost full time to this job of demolishing, as you say, demolishing the Sanatan Dharma, or demolishing the Hindu civilization. Something which, of course, they cannot do and it cannot happen. But then we cannot just sit back. We cannot sit back. We have to take note of it, try to understand it, and then analyze it, and then do what we think we should be doing about it. I think, first of all, I will say, let us localize this Hindu dwesha. Localize. If we don't localize, we may get the feeling, and people may get the impression the world over, and those who are listening, that practically everyone, in the world is suffering from Hindu dwesha, which is far from the truth. It's not so. In fact, Hindus are held in high esteem in South Asia, in Japan, in China, in Central Asia, Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, and today even in Afghanistan. You see, they are held in very high esteem in Sri Lanka, and they are held in a high esteem even in Iran. And if you go by what has transpired after this Russian-Ukraine conflict, I think the Russians and even the Europeans have a degree of respect for Hindus. And the world over, in the academy of the world, the European academies, the European universities, which in 19th century were doing Indian studies, as our boys have been doing computer and commerce these days, there is a great respect for India's knowledge civilization. So it is only a small part, which is the Anglo-American Academy, part of the Anglo-American Academy. Anglo has now receded. It is now more an American Academy, and an American Academy, certain universities, and American media like New York Times, and a part of the American politics, which is carrying out a systematic act and systematic Because the American state, and because of their mistaken uh, philosophy of so-called liberalism, so-called freedom of speech, so-called democracy as a very romanticized system. The American state is a handmaiden at present, handmaiden of three forces: the evangelists, the Islamists, and a section of the Jewish lobby. A section. But the Jews are not anti-Hindu at all. You see, the Jews are not anti-Hindu. The Jews are very worried about their own situation, and they have the mind and the power to sustain themselves as they have done over millennia. But a section, by section I mean some of those who are in the academy, like Noam Chomsky, or people like that, who sort of parrot the they I call them the sarkari intellectuals, paid sarkari, promoted, prompted, supported intellectuals, who create this kind of impression. So it's only this, it's a small part. We must first of all localize this. So it's not the world, it's not Asia, it's not Europe. In fact, we are held in a high respect, and our civilization is held in a very high respect. And the people now, particularly in the last 10 years or so, before 10 years, you see, Indian state was seen as a kind of a toothless, subverted and a sabotaged state, where people could take liberty with the state and the people, because there was no response, no calibrated response, no powerful response. It was seen, I mean, before 2014, 2000 up to 13, it was seen as a weak, toothless kind of state. And, everybody and anybody could, sort of say anything about us. And till then, within India itself, the, the majority population, the majority who really defines this country, was was itself a kind of, making a kind of in a situation where it was trying to survive, in the sense it was trying to retain the respect and the value of its ideas, of its motives, of its heroes, of its icons, who were all under attack. Say Ram Setu, Shivaji, Maharana Pratap, Vedas, or Bhagwan Ram, people said he wasn't born, produce a certificate, etc., etc. Mahabharat war did not take place. We were under I remember till 70s or so, late 70s, till Balasaheb Thackeray, raised this great slogan, Garv se kaho hum Hindu hain. Years will pass, you will not hear the word Hindu on the radio or on anything, or in public sphere. So we were at that point of time, because of our nature, of our predilection, our personality, the Hindu personality, which is more like a long tolerating, long enduring, personality. It endures for long, till it wakes up. Anyways, we were not able. So you see, it's a small section, and till 13. But today, India is not a sabotaged state. It is still not completely free of saboteurs, and is still not free of the enemy within, of the enemy within. But then it is in a better position. It is till 13, it was kept economically poor, it was kept militarily weak, and socially divided, and therefore an easy handle for people to misuse. Today it's not so. Today India has now a kind of a unified, you can see that India now appears as India, as it used to appear as India to people like Fayan or Megasthenes or, all these people when they came to India. They have no doubt that this is India. Till, our constitution makers and the rulers who came after 47, they began to ask the question whether India is a nation. But the people who came to India before 11th century, visitors, or those who are coming now, they have no doubt, or people themselves have no doubt that this is India. This is one country. So this change has taken place. This is, as I said, the American state is the handmaiden of evangelists and Islamists, and they are the two conspirators. You see, now if you look at them, why are they opposed to Hindu civilization or Hindu society? Because both of them are Abrahamic, and they belong to a knowledge culture which is absolutely opposite of the Vedic culture to which we belong. You see, there are two knowledge cultures in the world, the Abrahamic and the Vedic. And as we all aware, the Abrahamic spawned three systems, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And Vedic has spawned four systems, Sanatan, Jain, Bauddha, and Sikh. The basic difference in the two systems, the basic difference is the Abrahamic knowledge culture is theocentric, God centered. And the God, the Hebraic God, the Abrahamic God, is Nirakar. It is one God and formless. But, but it is not a Nirgun. It's not Nirgun. It's not attributeless. So there is a fault line in the Hebraic God. Even Spinoza, writing interpretation of the scripture, said in the 17th century, the Hebraic God is an angry God. That is why the three systems who believe in one God, they fight each other because they say one God, but our one God, not your one God. You see? But Vedic culture does not have the logical fault lines. In Vedic culture, it's not a theocentric culture. Vedic culture is a Jiva-centric culture. Jiva, living beings centered. And if you look at our ancient knowledge texts, I don't call them scripture. Scripture is the wrong word to use for Indian texts, Vedic texts or Bhagavad Gita or Brahma Sutra. To call them scripture is to classify them with the Abrahamic bibliolateral system. These books are not objects of worship for us. And we know that in India it often happens that people can tear a Veda in public. People can throw Bhagavad Gita on the ground. It doesn't matter because we as a long living civilization know that a book is a book. It's not the idea. As Adi Shankaracharya had said, that the composition, the one with a binding, what you hold in your hand, that is not Veda. The words which are printed in ink inside, that is also not Veda. Veda is what is indicated by those signs. That is the knowledge. And you can burn a book, but not burn the ideas. As the Chinese learned, after they burnt all Confucius books, Confucius came back because you cannot burn the ideas. So we are not a bibliolaterous people. They are a bibliolaterous people. They are one God people. We are not at all God-oriented people. Very few Indians realize, being under the influence of missionary schools, as if God is a necessity. God is a necessity for human condition and society. But we don't believe that. The Vedic civilization doesn't believe it. Four of our theistic systems, darshans, Sankhya, Mimamsa, and Vaisheshika. God, there is no category such as God. God is not an ontological category at all. And they are called theistic systems. Astik darshan hai, God nahi hai. We don't have We don't have a God with a capital G. We have a small G, Devi Devta. Otherwise, we have Devi Devta. Devi Devta, they represent various forces of man, forces of nature, attributes, abilities. And we use the word Bhagwan, even for those human beings who have achieved perfection. Like what the Krishna told when Arjun wanted to know how he should recognize him, where should he recognize him? He said, wherever you see perfection, I am there. So Panini, who is a grammarian, whom we know was born in a particular village, who we know he wrote certain books, we call him Bhagwan Panini. And Vedvyasa, who wrote Mahabharata, who was the, who was the son of he was in modern terminology, he will be an illegitimate child, you see, but he's a rishi. And we call him Bhagwan Vedvyas, Bhagwan Vedvyas. So this is a very important difference because we are not theocentric and we are not monistic. We are not monolithic. So we have that eclecticism, the ability to accept variation, variety, and diversity. One of our thinkers, Bhartrihari, had said that Swavikalpaja Vada Bahuda Mata. Depending on one's own predilection, there are numerous systems with thought which are created. And they are all valid, he says, all valid. What we need for a society to be harmonious is a unifying intellect, unifying idea, unifying, not Unitarian, unifying, ekatva buddhi, not ek buddhi, but ekatva buddhi. Ekatva buddhi, sarvavad avirodhini, which is not opposed to any system of ideas. So that eclecticism and that we free from. So our ethics is not God-centric. It's not God-centric. Dharmartha kama moksha, righteousness, material well-being, fulfillment of desires, freedom from all this. Now, these are the goals of human life. And these are the goals of human life all around the globe. And they are not centered in God. Not centered in God because we don't have a God. It's independent. Or the ashramas, the 4 stages in life. Or the kind of the marga, the paths that you can take. You can take the path of knowledge, you can take the path of action, you can take the path of bhakti. So we are a very, very different kind of system. And that is why we have survived as a civilization. We are the only civilization of the 46 human civilizations listed by UNO, only civilization which has survived and continues to be alive and kicking. And in our system, in our way of thinking, in our rationality of thought, in our scientificity of our conceptions, in our great achievements in science, You see, we are a very powerful alternative and one with a great capacity to survive as against the civilization, a part of whom, a very small part of whom are trying to destroy us. You see, a very small part of whom. They have no chance. They have no chance. We must be very careful. But we have to counter them. We have to counter them. Now that group which is working, which doesn't, they have caught hold of certain things. And what they have caught hold of, for example, caste, idol worship, many gods, which is very, according to them, patthar, worshipping a stone as a god, idol worship. Now, these are nothing new. In fact, this criticism came to India in 19th century with British liberalism. Now, liberalism had done a great good to Britain. It helped them ward off a revolution like the French Revolution. You see, so they took to liberal path, social legislation and liberalism, and they escaped that bloody revolution. Well, so it's good to them. But when they came to India, it was used as a stick to beat the Hindu society with. Why? Why did the East India Company that came first, the British, why did they choose the Hindu society to attack? Because they had taken power not from the Mughals, they had taken power from the Marathas. It is from the Marathas that the British had taken power. Those who know Indian history, they know that for long it was not certain. Even the British did not believe that they will rule India. Because till 1761, in the third battle of Panipat, you see, it was believed even by the Afghans that the Maratha sword is invincible. Invincible. You see? And but then it happened, the battle was lost, it was a disaster. But within 12 years, under Madhavrao Peshwa, the Marathas had regained their power. So the danger to the British power came from the Hindus. So the British targeted the Hindu society. And what were the major issues? Widows, widow remarriage is not allowed, sati pratha, idol worship, caste, caste inequality, and liberalism was used to thrash. And unfortunately, again, unfortunately, our own thinkers, you see, they became in a way collaborators. You see, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and others, so they became collaborators. Coming to modern times now, why is the American Academy is able to do all this? You know what? So widespread way, wokeism and whatever, because they have the Indian collaborators. It is our Indian students, Indian people
हाँ जी
who take high education here,
हाँ
and then for pelf and profit, they sell themselves, they sell their knowledge to them.
हाँ
In
जी
fact, I call them the dollar washed and theory colored collaborators. Target is of course clear. Target is Hindu dharma and civilization. And now what is the strategy? The strategy that they have adopted, the strategy is transfer the western guilt, transfer the South American guilt, the American guilt, the Spaniard guilt, the Western civilization guilt to the Hindu society. They have guilt on three terms. They have the guilt of genocide, they have guilt of racism, and they have guilt of slavery. From Aristotle's Plato to 1865, when Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery, slavery has been a very well established part of the Western civilization. Now, in order to ascribe, paste, paste this slavery on Hindu civilization, you see, they took upon caste, using the word caste instead of varna, and considering both it as a racial and as a form of slavery, which is of course untrue, far from the truth, but this is shifting the guilt. And the genocide, you see, for example, we heard about Gujarat riots. 1,000 people died, 830 Muslims, 200 Hindus, but genocide. But 17 million Red Indians, 35 million Mexicans, and about almost 100 million Aztecs, and of course the Jews, 1940 to 45, half a million Jews, 5 lakh Jews, killed. This is genocide. The Western civilization is a genocidal civilization, but they want to transfer the guilt to us, and they blame us for all the things for which, in fact, they are to be blamed. They are
जी
to be blamed. So this is the strategy, and India is a pasture. India is a grazing land for these predators, the proselytizing civilizations, and therefore the maximum damage. They show great concern for the what they call tribal. We don't use the term Vanavasis, we call them. They grow concern. But who are the people who have destroyed the Adivasi culture in India? Who are the people? It is the Christian people, evangelists, who have converted the Janajatis of Jaintiyas, Garos, Khasis, and others to Christianity and destroyed their culture. Fortunately, the response is beginning and people are going back to their nature worship. Now, in every other way, we are different. We have a different view of God, we have a different view of nature, we have a different view of man, we have a different view of time, and we have a different values and different goal of life. They are, but then they cannot really have a good peaceful dialogue with us. They can't have a dialogue. They can only blame, criticize, and go. So what should we do? Well, first of all, we should ban proselytization in our country. Why should a civilization which does not proselytize, why should we allow proselytization? Why should we do? We are not hunters. We are the hunted people. Why should we allow hunters to hunt us? That's one. Number two, we should have a uniform civil code. Number three, we should correct the blunder of 1947. And in the constitution, India, that is Bharat, the word by which India has been known for 1000 years, Hindustan, that word is missing. It should become Hindustan. And fourth, we should undo the post 47 blunders. For example, the Hindu Code Bill, it should be abolished. For example, the Charitable Endowment Acts, by which all our temples have been taken over by the government, it should be abolished. The Waqf Board Act should be abolished. The 1991 Places of Worship Act should be abolished. And the historical wrongs that have been done to us, the Hindus should demand an apology from the top clergy of Islam and Christianity for 600, 800 years of genocide of Hindus. We should demand. Remember that the Christian Archpope, he apologized to the Jews in 85. I think we also need an apology for us. And for our own people who work as foot soldiers outside and abuse our country, their citizenship should be cancelled, their passports should be cancelled. They should either prove their defamation in our courts, and if they can't, their citizenship should be cancelled. We have to be proactive. We cannot take this nonsense for long by just lying down. We have, I think, been nascent for a long time. Thank you very much.